Hello and welcome back to the second day of RRS Live. My name is Aislinn Hamill, and today I'll be presenting on security testing of biometric authentication systems for enhanced access control applications. This research is done under Dr. Travis Atkison with the Department of Computer Science. Before I begin, I'd like to give a brief overview of what I'll be discussing today. First, I'll give a background of this topic, then I will jump into the methodology of how this research is performed, and finally, I'll describe my future work. So, as for background, facial recognition systems and authentication biometric systems as a whole are a new technology that have been embraced by facilities such as campuses and military bases to manage their gate access. While this new technology provides an efficient solution for gate access, there are many potential issues with security due to this being a new technology. As such, this project aims to test a product from IDEMIA called the ID2 Access Suite. The ID2 Access Suite not only encompasses a facial recognition system, but goes beyond that, including site-wide surveillance. The goal of this project is to not only identify vulnerabilities, but suggest mitigation tactics as well. So to jump into it, I'd like to talk about what the ID2 Access Suite is first. The ID2 Access Suite consists of 4 components. These components range from upon entering the site all the way to leaving. The first component is ID2 enrollment, which involves the remote enrollment of employees or people in general who need to use this site through an app. Next, we have ID2 Pass, which encompasses the facial recognition system as a whole, including sensors as well as the background systems that transport and analyze the facial recognition system data. Next, we have ID2 Surveillance, which for the purpose of this project will not be discussed in breadth due to it being site-wide on-premises surveillance with drone technology. Finally, we have ID2 Access Control. This encompasses authentication devices set up in front of secure sites within the facility, such as biometric devices including iris scanners and fingerprint scanners. Now, before getting into the methodology, I'd like to describe the testing focus. Each node will be testing alone and in combination to ensure the resilience of the suite. This ensures that data is secured both in transit and at rest. The primary focus of this testing is to vet ID2 Pass, the facial recognition portion of ID2 Access. This includes vetting the enrollment, facial matching, as well as access control as a whole upon gate entry. As such, vulnerabilities have been placed into 3 categories arbitrarily based on the specifications of the ID2 Access Suite. The first category is presentation attacks. This involves presenting false data to a facial recognition system in order to either break the system or convince it you are an authorized individual. The various presentations you can present to a facial recognition system includes masks, a face with makeup, glasses, as well as distorted imagery in order to break its algorithm. Next, we have transmission or storage attacks, which involves anything going over the network as well as what's being stored within databases. And this can be taken advantage of if the proper encryption algorithms or protocols are not being used on the network, allowing an attacker to intercept that data. Finally, we have hardware attacks. This involves physically tampering with a hardware device. This can either be done through attempting to break the device in order to deny availability, or devices emit certain signals, whether that's energy output or lighting, and that can potentially be decoded with the right tools to extract data. Now, before I get into how we will perform our testing, I would like to discuss previous testing. There have been 2 pilot testing sites, one in Huntsville, Alabama at the Redstone Arsenal, and another in Morgantown, West Virginia. At the Huntsville site, only ID2 enrollment and ID2 Pass were tested, while at Morgantown, there was a more thorough investigation into each component of the ID2 Access Suite. For the Huntsville site, many vulnerabilities became very clear with ID2 enrollment and ID2 Pass. One of the biggest issues with ID2 enrollment was improper vetting of photos. Employees took photos of themselves at home to be put into the facial recognition system along with their IDs to secure their identity. But due to the remote aspect of the app, it allowed employees to take photos at improper angles, lighting, with masks, with improper makeup. And this creates a huge problem because the data set fed into a facial recognition system is very, very important. If a data set is poisoned with incorrect or improper data, this can lead to potential false positives or false negatives. The next vulnerabilities were with ID2 Pass, one of the biggest of which being liveness detection. Liveness detection is pivotal in all modern day facial recognition systems because this is what prevents an adversary from just taking a photo of an authorized individual and presenting that to the facial recognition system for access. And the next biggest issue with ID2 Pass was false positives. While we aren't entirely sure how many of these false positives were identified, nor have we been informed of how they fix their algorithm to solve this issue, we do plan on testing again to ensure that the issue has been resolved. Next, to discuss the issues at Morgantown, a lot of the vulnerabilities involved networking problems, such as not using proper encryption at all or incorrectly implemented encryption protocols or algorithms. This caused plain text data to be transferred over the network, which could easily be intercepted. And on top of that, plain text credentials were being stored on machines. So moving on to methodology. After going over pilot testing, it is very clear that more testing is needed to ensure that ID2 access is ready for use. As such, a test site is being built out at an approved location on land owned by the University of Alabama. While we are waiting for this to happen, we are currently defining test cases for every node. These test cases include exploring numerous types of different software used for network enumeration as shown on screen, as well as hardware software, to explore certain hardware issues that we could potentially encounter. Finally, we will also be exploring test spoofing tools, particularly AI-generated imagery, 3D masks, as well as more traditional type of presentation attacks, such as just presenting masks or hats to the screen. And after all of this is done, we will analyze what weaknesses we find and present mitigation strategies. And so finally, just to summarize my future work, we are currently developing the test cases, and from there we will begin vulnerability testing. This will be cyclical as we reassess our findings and go back to ensure we get all the data we can. Once our results are collected and weaknesses are identified, we will then implement mitigation strategies. Questions?
So if you go back to slide 5, the presentation part, kind of it's intriguing to me. So when you're testing this, do you do tests with different kinds of lighting conditions, like really bright lights, less lights, or maybe someone like if I haven't shaved in 4 days, just kind of things like that. What are the test cases that you would put together to check for whether you would get caught by false positives or false negatives?
Yeah, of course. So lighting is definitely a very, very important thing. The angle, if we're talking military bases and their gates specifically, the tint on glasses could be a huge problem. So that's something we're definitely considering. On top of that, it is, like you mentioned, with growing out a beard or wearing makeup, it can be really hard to say what the sensitivity on these devices should be. And that is something that is assessed as the data set is built and reassessed. And so I can't give a specific specification on whether you can have a 4-week beard or not, but that is definitely something we will be testing. As well as we're testing photos, we're testing videos of different resolutions. Also, as said in the presentation, potentially generated masks using both AI and 3D printing.
So I'm trying to remember which slide this was on, but at some point you talked about liveness detection. And I sort of want to know how this works. Like how can a computational algorithm, et cetera, how can one of these methods distinguish between somebody in real life and like an image?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of that goes into blinking and breathing. I think I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure a lot of it is just checking for the signals that us as humans naturally emit without thinking. So again, blinking, breathing, if you're talking while going through the gate, if you're listening to music, potentially bobbing your head, all of those are definitely factors that would go into liveness detection.
So, do you think it's ethical to use facial recognition in drones like this for the constant monitoring for the sake of security?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think that in the modern day, it's a constant back and forth, especially now, even outside of facial recognition systems with social media. We are balancing privacy and security. How much of our data should be seen versus how much of us should be seen to keep our workplaces, our livelihoods secure. And so I'd say that is a very complex question and depends on the situation. For this specific aspect, facial recognition systems, particularly within military bases, I'd say it really depends on the transparency that is provided to employees and approximately how much they are watching.
How is personal data protected in the ID2 access system? Who is allowed to use it?
That's a good question. So with the ID2 Access Suite, we are approaching it as a black box, meaning we have very limited information. The ID2 Access Suite is proprietary, so there is a lot of information they do not want to divulge to us. As such, it is very hard to say right now who has access to what and how secure that data is. What I can say is during the pilot testing at the Huntsville site for Redstone Arsenal, the ID2 Access Suite eventually is supposed to connect to federal databases for military bases. And that was denied due to the vulnerabilities and the uncertainty that the ID2 Access Suite promotes. Well, not necessarily promotes, but has currently. As such, I cannot entirely say that, but we are working on determining the answer to that question and then fixing any potential issues with it.